Hello again. I thought it was about time we did some baking. So we're doing a couple of cake recipes today. And of course, Scotland is famous for its baking. So I've picked a couple of easy ones, a little bit different, and for you to enjoy, a little bit retro as well. So we're going to start off with little lemon butterfly cakes. It's spring, there's a little bit of sort of an egg theme and a yellow theme going on here, and I thought the butterfly cakes would be lovely as a little treat or as a dessert even. So in the bowl here, it's a totally simple all-in-one recipe. So you've got 100 grams each of your plain flour, your butter, your sugar. I've used a soft brown sugar, gives it a lovely golden colour, and also 100 grams of butter. No, I said the butter, didn't I? So they're all in there, and we're going to add a couple of eggs for that and a teaspoon of baking powder. You can, of course, use self-raising flour, but I just tend to keep plain flour in the house and then add whatever raising agent I want to use at the time. So over here, I've got my last egg to add. And if you think it's a little bit on the large side, it's because it's a duck egg. I picked up some lovely duck eggs when I was along at Ardross in Fife here. And you don't need to have duck eggs. 2 ordinary hen's eggs will be lovely. But if you do happen to see them, they're lovely and enrich a cake always. And they are larger. So you also need a knife. You're going to have a job cracking them on the side of the bowl. They're definitely a slightly harder shell. So we're adding that second egg as well there. And that's the mixture ready. Remember, whenever you've been handling raw eggs, always give your hands a good wash. And give them a dry. And we're going to just do an all-in-one recipe for this. Very simple. Make sure your butter is a little bit soft, that helps. And pardon the noise. And I'll just give it a quick whisk round. Now you can add to this recipe a little bit of vanilla if you want to, and you can also add some lemon zest if you have lemons in the house, but you don't need to, but you can if you want to. It's nearly there already. If you have to use a wooden spoon, then you'll build up some nice muscles, but it works beautifully with a wooden spoon as well. Just turn up the speed now that it's all combined. If you turn up the speed too quickly, you can sometimes end up with it round the room. Now it should be light and glossy, and it should be a dropping consistency. So you're looking for that. And that should do us nicely. Now, it should literally drop off the spoon, and that's perfect. That's lovely. If it wasn't dropping off the spoon, then add a little bit of cold water or even a drop of milk, just so that it's that what we call dropping consistency. So there's really no excuse to go and buy cakes. And you don't know what you're going to get in them when you buy cakes, whereas when you make your own, you will know that there's not any palm oil in sight. So I've got here a little bun tray with some cake cases. You don't have to use the cake cases. If you want to butter all the bun trays, that's fine. That works too, but it's rather nice to be able to lift them out. And pop a little bit with a small pudding spoon and a cook's pinky into each. Now, if you're getting the young ones to do this, because it's something that you can do with all the family, I do discourage them licking their fingers, because when it's raw eggs, it's better not to. They can lick the spoon with the whipped cream instead. Now this will do a dozen of these, which is a lovely bundle. Now this is what they call an all-in-one mix. And if we had beaten up the butter and sugar first, as we're going to do for the next one, that's called the creaming method. But either way, it's quite a butter-rich sponge. And when you have butter in it, it keeps well. So if you make a Swiss roll, which is called a fatless sponge, which would also work beautifully, it won't keep as well. It needs to be eaten by the following day. That's not to say these won't all be scoffed pretty quickly, but when you put butter in a sponge, it will have a longer shelf life. And of course, what you can do is you can put, pipe and decorate half a dozen now and put half in the freezer, and they will keep beautifully. You can freeze cakes and baking and it lasts beautifully. Undecorated, decorate them when they come out. So top up each, because they should all be evenly filled, because that way they cook in the same time. And it's exactly the same recipe if you're wanting to make chocolate ones, for example, but the cocoa will often stiffen your mixture. So you may well need to add a tablespoon of water to that. Now I mentioned a tablespoon here, and I've got beside me here Granny's EP&S tablespoon. And although we do have scales in the house, 100 grams works beautifully as a rounded tablespoon for flour and a level tablespoon for sugar. So you can make a cake very quickly without even having scales in sight. I'll just finish this off. The 100 grams, 4 ounces in old money, is perfect for a dozen little buns. And these will take about 25 minutes in a temperature of about 170. The recipe is up on the website. There we are. Mission accomplished. And in they go. Oops. There we go. Quick hand wash again. Now the great thing about that quick recipe is that you can make them as cupcakes. You can make it as a birthday cake, as one round, or quite often what I do, as I'm going to do for the next recipe, is I use a Swiss roll tin, because that way when a cake is more shallow, it will cook more quickly. It's the depth that controls the time of the bake. So if you do a cake on a shallow tin, then you can do a tray bake, you can make them triangles, squares, oblongs, and they will cook more quickly. So that's just a quick shortcut for you. And we're going to use this for our next one. So our next one is a tea loaf. And it's a kind of fruitcake, and it's very, very popular in our house. It's lovely just as a little sweet snack, but it's also delicious with a strong cheese. So a lovely artisan cheese like Jane's Mature Farmhouse from Fife here, from St Hadja's Farmhouse Cheese, or the Isle of Mull, or it's rather nice with blue cheese, and Fleet Valley Blue down in Dumfries and Galloway, or indeed the Hebridean Blue from Isle of Mull. So Lanark Blue, sheep, bigger blue, goat. So there's a lot of lovely blue cheeses in Scotland, and it works beautifully with a tea loaf. So what I've got here in the bowl is my butter and sugar. Now you'll see it's quite dark, and that's because I've added 25 grams of muscovado sugar, which is this really, really dark, unrefined sugar, and it gives a lovely depth of colour and a caramelly taste to any bakes or desserts. So I use this quite often in cooking. We've also got here, so this is creamed already, and we've also got the flour, baking powder, and a spoonful of cinnamon. So it's 2 to 5 grams of flour. The recipe is on the website again. Teaspoon of cinnamon, teaspoon of baking powder. And that's going to go in, and as are 4 eggs. So we'll pop in a couple of eggs and some of the flour and get it going with a wooden spoon. These are hen eggs this time. Also 5. We'll add some of the sugar. It just makes it slightly easier to do it this way, and it means your mixture won't curdle. So I'll just get it going in the pan. Pull here. If I peg out, I can always use the beaters behind me, but it really is very easy. I have the butter in a sunspot, so it's going to be nice and soft. You can't really make cake with a hard butter, but I never ever use margarine. I want it to be totally natural. You can see that's coming together beautifully. So I'm going to add the other 2 eggs. and the remainder of the flour. Now I mentioned tea loaf. Now this isn't a Dundee cake, this is a much more moist cake than that, although Dundee cake is also delicious. And the reason is because I pre-soak the fruit in tea. A good strong teapot, and I've got Brodie's tea. They prepare and blend a lovely range of teas and roast coffees over in East Lothian. So we're supporting another family business, and we're using their tea for soaking our fruit. Now on the recipe, I've got vine fruits, and vine fruits are super, but I don't know, some people must be driven mad by my recipes because they're different every time I cook them. But some of you might love that. So you can make this your own recipe. So although I've used vine fruits, I also was a bit short of vine fruits. So I've added some chopped dates, and we also have some lovely dried apples that we made in September and October in the apple season. And we've added some of the dried apples to the mix as well, which is really delicious. Now that's coming together beautifully. Just mix it all in so it's nice and smooth. There you are, you can see. Now this is a little bit stiffer than the last one. And there's a reason for that, because you've still to add your fruit. And here it is. So this has been soaking for several hours in some lovely hot, strong Brodie's tea. And you can see the bits of cut apple there, and the vine fruits, and some dates. So what I'm going to do is add, it doesn't matter if some of the tea goes in, but I'm kind of draining the tea a little bit as I spoon in the fruit. Otherwise it can be too much. But it's really absorbed a lot of it. So just cover the fruit in tea, and they all plump up. So they're lovely and moist before they go into your cake. So you're not using the moisture from your cake to plump up your fruit. So it works really well. There's also the odd cherry in there too, because I had 5 in the bottom of a tub. So just add what you like. And it's very nutritious. It's a healthy pudding. So I'm not putting a calorie number beside it. I don't believe in that, but it's an absolutely delicious one. And of course, by doing it on a tray like this, you can decide what your portion size is as well. Now we're going to stir that mixture in. You see about 400 grams of fruit there, dry before it was soaked. And now we're getting a lovely, lovely rich tea cake here. I'm looking around to see if I've missed anything out. No. Just blend it in. Now you don't want to use electric beaters here, even if you did earlier, because that would cut up the fruit. And you want to have these lovely pieces of fruit. You don't want to make it a mash. So now you can see it's a little bit sloppy, which is exactly what you want. That's what you want. Now, if it was a little bit dry for any reason, then just add a spoonful of that tea mix. Just add it in, but it doesn't need it. It's fine. So I'm going to leave it be. And here is my tray, lined, of course. And we'll just pop all the mixture in. Now, this again will take about 25 minutes, and you can keep an eye on it. And it's ready when it's well risen and set. It too will freeze beautifully if you want to, but it also keeps very well in a tin. So there's not really the need to freeze it. You can just enjoy it over a week or so. Makes a lovely tasty snack for school's breaks as well. And then just push it out to the corners so it's nice and even. And you can see it's lovely and rich in fruit. Dried fruit is a very good source of iron as well, so it's a very, very healthy cake. And it keeps that lovely rich colour as well. And there we have our tea loaf, ready to go in the oven. Pop that over there. Next, my Blue Peter moment. Here's some I made earlier. Starting with the cake, which, confession, we have already had a nibble of it. After all, you've got to check the quality control. But it's a really beautiful cake. You can see it's well risen. You can also, which I forgot that I have here, is if you want to, you can scatter some flaked almonds all over the top, just as a little luxury topping. But it's not essential. But if you have them in the house, it's rather lovely. And as you can see, they bake a little bit toasted, and it's a really nice topping. About 50 grams does it. So, well risen, set, and I think you can also see it's got a lovely fruity inside there. Really nice. So that is our first one, ready to go. There it is. Now for our next one. So here we have these buns, some that I made earlier. And to make them like little butterflies, very retro, what you need is to get your buns out. There we are. And a nice clean sharp knife, and cut a little circle inside the cup case. So leave them in the cup case and cut a little circle, and out comes a little dome. And you've created a lovely hollow in the middle. We'll do it with a couple of them here. Now, I thought at this time of year, you know, lemon is kind of a nice sort of spring flavour. So it may not be local, but the lemon curd is made locally. It's made by Paul Newman at Erchel at Aberfeldy. If you haven't been, do go. They've got a lovely farm shop in Delhi. They've got their farms, you can see the animals, and it's a great place to go and visit. You can have lunch as well in the bistro. It's a really, really lovely place. So when you've got these little hollows and you've got your little domes, cut each of the domes in half. Of course, you don't need to do this, but it's just rather nice. And what I've got in here is whipped cream with a generous tablespoon of the lemon curd through the cream. It doesn't affect the texture at all. It's lovely, and you can spoon it on, and it makes a great topping. It's delicious. You can also use it as a Swiss roll filling. So I highly recommend his lemon curd. But if you want to, you can use a piping bag, and all you do is just fill the middle with a nice generous twist like that. Quite fun. I get these bags from Lakeland. I'm on no commission whatsoever, but if you've been to catering college and you've washed out piping bags, you never want to wash a piping bag again. So these are really, really handy. So they're one of the few disposables I use. So there you are. You see we've got the lemon cream in there. This just stops it making a mess everywhere. And then what you do is you take your little butterfly wings, pop them on the top, like so. Hence why they're called butterfly cakes. And then, just to finish them off, a little bit of icing sugar. Just makes them look like something straight from a boulangerie in Paris. There you go. So we have our little lemon curd butterfly cakes there. And of course, there's nothing to stop you doing butterfly cakes in a chocolate cake recipe with chocolate buttons on the top if you feel inclined. It is, the only limits are your imagination. So I hope today I've given you some little ideas for some sweet treats for your kitchen. And when you're watching this, maybe you'd like to email some of your own ideas. And these recipes and others will be on scottishfoodguide.scot, along with fantastic places to eat in Scotland and great producers. So tune in next time, and happy baking.